Hi, I'm Ryan Hunter, and this is Kalispell Connections. It's a program where I interview local leaders about issues important to the community. And today I have with me Joe Unterreiner, who is the president of the Kalispell Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Ryan, good to be with you.
So let's start off. Obviously, there's a lot of businesses that are hurting right now with the current situation with the pandemic. And we know that Congress passed the CARES Act that had a provision there to help businesses stay on their feet and try to survive this crisis. Could you tell us a little bit about the CARES Act and the program in there to help businesses locally?
Yeah, so we're coming up on 2 weeks from the implementation of the CARES Act bill, and things are moving very quickly. The expectation is that the funds will be completely subscribed to by the end of this week. So that's how quickly that's moved. That is with the payroll protection plan, right, which is the major feature for small business support in the CARES Act bill. Some of the features of that plan are that it supports small businesses. The federal definition of those are businesses with less than 500 employees, right? So small businesses and nonprofits. So that's one of the nice features of this bill, is that it also supports 501c3s, and a number of those nonprofits around the valley have taken advantage of this program. It also supports C19s, which are veterans organizations. Just recently, they also decided to add C12s, which are cooperatives. So, kind of nonprofits organized under a cooperative structure. And there's some thought to adding additional in later cycles, although those funds are quickly expiring, although there is an attempt to address extending the amount of those funds. So they were initially approved for $349 billion, and they're almost fully subscribed at this point, including billions of dollars here in the state of Montana.
And I just saw that they're looking to, they think they might pass something on Friday for additional $250 billion.
That's the effort, although that's come up twice now for unanimous consent, and has not gotten through. There's some different, obviously it's Congress, and there's different attitudes about what should be included. But the unique thing about this bill, as opposed to some that happened like in the '09 recession, is that independent contractors and sole proprietors are also able to take advantage of this. So that's a big boost for those categories which had been excluded, in sort of other similar business relief bills earlier recessions.
Mm-hmm. And so locally, how many people are contacting you about this program? How many people have taken advantage of it so far locally?
Yeah, so our involvement was, number one, putting pressure and influence and advocacy around getting the CARES Act bill passed, right? And we had weighed in on these relief programs specifically with our congressional group, who all voted in support of the CARES Act bill, all three members of our congressional delegation. And then once that passed, it was a week later before applications were being submitted, and there was an intense amount of interest and looking for information and analysis, and what's included in those, and when are we going to be able to apply, and what kind of information should we begin collecting right now. So that lasted to this Friday will be 2 weeks ago, right? So there was an intense amount of interest, in those phone calls and emails really went around the clock for that week. Once things opened up and financial institutions started accepting applications, then it really became something where business owners were working with their accountants and their lenders on applying for those loans. And there's another bill out there, which is a emergency disaster relief program. That's a companion bill, which in some cases, depending on the organization, that is a better fit for you perhaps than the payroll protection plan. But anyway, there's a couple of different programs that are available out there. So now that is, firmly, now we're 2 weeks into the implementation phase of CARES Act, really the attention, and with the peaks in sight for a lot of states around the country, and certainly for Montana, now the attention for businesses has turned to, when can we get open? We need to, we've staved off sort of the emergency situation, but how do we get revenue coming the other direction? So there's a tense amount of interest in, when can we get open? How can we get open? Is it going to be phased? At what point will the governor lift his stay-at-home directives? So that's where the interest is now with businesses around Flathead Valley.
Mm-hmm. What does the application process look like for that loan program? And kind of, my understanding is the loan can be forgiven too if they're able to retain their payroll. Is that correct? And
yes, so that's a good point to raise, a good question, Ryan. So one of the unique features of the payroll protection plan is that you receive lending amount in the amount of 2 months of payroll with benefits. So that's what the loan amount is. Now, if you retain your employees and the number count and the compensation levels, that loan can be forgiven. So essentially it becomes a grant, right? So it can buy you 2 months of time to get you further down the road. That money has to then be spent in an 8-week period, right? Now they broaden a little bit what you can expend it on, which would include things like rent and utilities and some other things. But the amount that you're given is defined by what 2 months of payroll is, right? So that's the unique aspect of that. And the calculation that businesses make is, if I get 2 months, right, am I going to be able to keep that payroll and that the payroll plan and the payroll compensation in place for another 2 months, right? So that becomes why we've directed our attention and focus on getting open as quickly as possible, because that those 2 months will get by pretty quick. And I don't think the expectation is that you're going to go back. We went into this at phased in. You're not going to go back to pre-recession sort of business levels overnight. That's going to take some time to happen. And at the end of that time, then you've got to be ready to carry that payroll load, or it will be retained as a loan on your books, right? It'll have to be retained. So for it to become a grant, you've got to hold that there. And for businesses to hold those payroll levels there, you've got to have real revenue and real business occurring. So that's where we're at right now. So we've got to move as quickly back to work as we can safely and sustainably get there as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that will obviously be driven by the health side of it. Is the application through the Small Business Administration, or do you guys, the Chamber of Commerce, help with that application process?
Yeah, two good questions. So the payroll protection plan, you apply through your lender. So the funding comes through the Small Business Administration, but you work with your lender to make that application. The so-called EIDL loan, or the Emergency Disaster Relief Program, that loan goes directly to the SBA, right? And so that's just simply sba.gov is who you're applying to for that loan. But the other loan is you work through your lender on.
And obviously, the local lenders they're able to handle the volume of this. I mean, obviously, it's got to be a huge demand on it. The local lenders seem to be handling the volume and the
yeah.
demand.
So a week, to pass a bill and to accept loans to distribute almost $350 billion is an incredible undertaking. Yeah. And so things have been remarkably quick. There was and there still may be some just uncertainties that had to get worked through, and questions that banks needed to have answered. At this point, I think they've mostly worked through those. And there's a number of fundings that are occurring this week, and then there's more that are occurring next week. And lenders have a really a quick timeline. Once that application is made, they've got, I think it's only 10 days, and they're required to have that funding out within 10 days. So this is all lightning speed for government agencies.
Right, right. And did I see correctly on your website that the Flag County Economic Development Authority also is offering a small grants as part of this?
Yes, so they've got some loans that they have out there that are around $5,000. So small, sort of micro loans to assistance for emergency situations. And if your listeners out there are interested in those and eligible for those, they can contact Montana West Economic Development.
Okay, great. Are there any other programs available that you're aware of for the small businesses if they're trying to, figure out how am I going to survive this? What do you recommend to them?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is, first of all, is just the individual payments are scheduled to go out. Reportedly, some are rolling out right now, but are scheduled for this week. And that is $1,200 for every adult and $500 per child, subject to some income limitations, right? So, and those funds are totally tax-free. They won't be taxed at all. So that's number one, and that's happening right now. And then secondly, there's enhanced, not everybody is eligible for these programs. So for example, C6s that are business and professional trade associations like chambers of commerce, tourism organizations, economic development organizations, they aren't eligible for those programs. So to the extent other non-eligible payroll protection plan eligible companies, they may have to consider furloughing employees for a period of time. And there's enhanced benefits for those who are temporarily furloughed that amount to $600 per week, right? So in addition to the normal state allocation for unemployment insurance. So, so there's a number of tools available in place for employers to keep their employees attached, right, and to be able to hopefully ramp those back up as soon as the signal to be able to restart business occurs, right? And so for those, there's additional tools out there as well.
And I saw that tax payments are delayed for individual and businesses, correct? So that should help as well for folks who haven't perhaps paid their taxes yet this year. Are there any other thoughts or ideas? Obviously, the chamber, I saw on your website, you have quite a bit of information on there, fact sheets about these programs and Q&As for folks to take a look at. Other resources, thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're one of the sites out there, that where we've got a landing page where we're collecting quite a bit of information around this. So we've got a business section really that's got details and frequently asked questions for all of the things that we're covering in our conference here today. But in addition to that, we've got a list of the directives coming out of the governor's office and the Flathead County Health Department, local schools, the hospitals. So we've got a number, easily found, on one landing page, information about all of those other community support organizations and the directives coming out of there. And then we've got just other practical issues. So for example, we've got all of the businesses out there who have takeout and pickup, right? So that's a handy, and we're pushing that out via social media so people can help support their local businesses. We've got a number of businesses that have gone to sort of virtual tours and descriptions of their product and services. So here before the end of the week, I think you'll see us launch, a collection of virtual tours or virtual business shopping for retailers and other similar kinds of businesses. So that's out there. But I think the overall overall key message is, as we're seeing the peak here, that it's really time for us to put some, get everybody back to work, get these businesses opened up as quickly as safely possible, and get everybody back to work and businesses taking in and running their businesses again.
Yeah, and that's once we get past the health crisis, I think key attention is going to have to be at this economic level and really supporting our local businesses and helping them get back on their feet. So, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Anything else before we finish up?
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, great. Thanks, Joe.